the Bible gets it right. And the chances of that happening so completely and so continuously without fail has got to make even the biggest skeptic go, whoa, wait a minute. Who is this person? And what will his power be when the world came together under this wonderful, benevolent man who really was a wolf in sheep's clothing to the nth degree?
Hello, I'm Erika Gray, and welcome to the Hunt for the Antichrist. Today, I'm going to interview Michelle Mendoza, who is a broadcaster and who used to host live from Seattle in Seattle, Washington, and now has her own show called My Michelle Live. In addition, she has a business in which she helps other podcasters get started, as well as individuals who would like to publish a story, helps them to write their own book, as well as Michelle is the author of Find Your Voice, and that is the name of her business. So today, I'm pleased to welcome Michelle Mendoza. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you, Erika. It's great to connect with you.
Yes, back in the day, we used to do Prophecy Report.
Right. So you were a part of my daily afternoon drive radio show. You would come on at least once a month, and we would talk about things that are going on in the world and how it really relates to prophecy. It's amazing the current events that are taking place. I think there's a general sense around the world where people are saying, wait a minute, something's happening.
But then there's also so much disinformation explaining away why it's happening.
Right.
And the biblical gets drowned out. But yes, you've been a long time Christian, you've been in broadcasting, and you've also had something with film, making film. What did you do there?
Yeah, in my career, I have been in the entertainment industry for a long time. So dual ways, both as a reporter and talk show host, but also on stage and doing certain films, producing films, acting in films. But my heart has really been in communicating truth to people. So that's where I went down the road as a talk show host, like what you're doing now, and now helping others to learn to get their message out through podcasting, through publishing their own books, and through public speaking.
Yes, you have your business, and your website is for your coaching. You're coaching people how to do a podcast, telling them how to do it. You also have a little publishing company, and it's titled Find Your Voice.
That's right. Findyourvoice.fun. And that, yeah, this is the time we have more communication, more ability to reach more people than ever before in the history of mankind. And many of us feel like we have a message stirring inside of us. There is somebody that needs to hear from you, and it may make a difference in these crazy times.
And you let them know how to do it. So pay attention. Michelle is your go-to if you want to start a podcast, and she's got stellar experience. She's been a broadcaster for some time. I remember your program in Seattle. That was, well, the one, of course, that I was on. But let's cut to the chase. So we talked about prophecy. So I never did ask you on those programs, Michelle, and now I'm going to ask you on this because this is the topic of this show. But what are your views of the Antichrist?
Well, I truly believe that the Antichrist is a figure that's been prophesied about in the Bible. I truly believe that we are coming to a time where it is uncanny what we see happening in the world and how it aligns with biblical prophecy. I believe that as I study biblical prophecy, whether it is dealing with end times and an antichrist, or dealing with the birth of Christ, the death, the resurrection of Christ, and so many other things. The Bible gets it right. And the chances of that happening so completely and so continuously without fail has got to make even the biggest skeptic go, whoa, wait a minute. So if that's the case with so many other biblical prophecies, why would we not wake up and pay attention to the most nefarious character of all of human history, who is maybe yet to come on the public scene, at least on a worldwide level? But we do believe that, based on a lot of things happening in the world today, it's a very big likelihood that your show is very important, because we're seeking out, who is this person and what will his power be as we come into the coming years?
Yes, and I want to talk more about the Antichrist with you, but I first want to, how did you get into born again Christianity? How did you go from this entertainment world, you're also a musician and you've been in a band and you sing. I mean, you're very talented. You dance. I mean, you do it all. And so how did you go from that world to this world of Christianity? And what was your start or your interest in prophecy? And when did that begin?
Well, I guess you could say that I started off really as a girl of faith, and I think that interest, it was a search for truth. Now, you look at Christmas time. My start in faith came because I had a big belief in Santa Claus, like a lot of kids do. I believed. Oh boy, did I believe! And I remember being in school as a kindergartner, being teased by the other kids, Santa baby, you're Santa crazy. But I believed, and my teacher brought me in and during recess, and she gave me cookies and some cocoa, and we sat down. She said, I hope someday you find something greater than Santa to believe in. And that year, when I left a note for Santa, thinking I'm gonna reap the benefits because I took my stand. I was nearly a martyr for Santa, right? As a 5-year old, I'm gonna take my stand, and Santa's gonna reward me. But he left the picture I drew for him on the ground, didn't eat all of the cookies, and I felt really dissed by Santa. However, I found something deeper. And that was something that was true, that was real, that, as I found over the years, plays out through science, plays out through archaeology, plays out through logic. And that is the biblical God, the God that we see of the Bible.
At 5 years old?
Yeah, well, I
Was
what
it
I'm
five
saying is
years
that
old?
I found something deeper, and it's proven out over the years.
Okay, so you started at 5 years old, which isn't, I've heard stories of many children coming to Christ and coming to faith. So your journey started basically as a child.
And I have studied and learned and grown from a childlike faith to well, I'm going to doubt this. I don't know about this. And watching it prove out in many ways, as I mentioned, scientifically, with archaeology, with logic, all of these ways that faith has proven out over the years, it has been part of what I do. And that is why a lot of my talents, as you mentioned, or my passions, have intertwined with my faith. But the most important thing is that communication of the passion inside of me that can maybe reach other people who are in a place where they're seeking answers in a time where a lot of people are finding confusion and pain.
Yes. And so when did the interest in prophecy or your first hearing of the Antichrist, when did this happen?
Okay, someone who may be of my age, you may relate to this. Uh, when there was back in the day, maybe in the 70s, late 70s, there were these movies. I don't know if I mention this, you may know what I'm talking about. They were the Left Behind, like Left Behind or something of that nature. And
Mhm.
they showed them in churches and they scared the living bejesus out of you. And you're like, oh, I don't want to be left behind. And prophecy at that time became big. Those movies had a real impact. And it's hard for someone who's maybe younger to understand now because we're inundated with movies and videos and YouTube and such. But then we had three channels on the television. And when you saw a movie, you had to go out to a theater to see a movie, or we were lucky enough for it to come to a church near you. They showed these movies where life was normal. And then there was something that took place, a rapture, as we might call it, a catching away. And suddenly, Christians everywhere were gone. What did that look like? Then on the scene came this man that said, "Peace, and we have a way forward through peace, and I'm going to bring it to you." And the world came together under this wonderful, benevolent man who really was a wolf in sheep's clothing to the nth degree. And that's where my awareness came from. Who really is this? Is this just a fictional character, or is there really something to it? Is there a biblical base for it?
And how frightening is he going to be? I'm asking you, in your estimation from what you've learned, how frightening is the Antichrist?
Because when you think about it, how frightening is he going to be? He's going to be both not frightening at all, and in fact wonderful and beautiful and full of hope and everything we could ever dream of on one side. But on the other, underneath the surface, with his real message, the real intention, and what it will lead mankind eventually to, there is nothing that you could wrap your head around to the level of evil that he will encompass.
You know, it's funny that you should say that, because somebody who studies, of course, myself, who studies the prophetic, I'm finding as these events are unfolding that it's almost worse than what we have imagined. And in the scripture, in the book of Daniel, it says that the Antichrist is going to change times and laws. I don't
Mm.
think we can really wrap our head around how the, let's say, the impact of that statement and what that could even look like in by the most diabolical, vile. He's an absolute entity. I mean, he's part entity and he's part man. I don't think we can wrap our heads around, Michelle, what those days are going to look like.
No, and I think that when we think about it, I think all of us, in one way or another, maybe even if you haven't taken a moment to think, what would it be like to travel back in time and to meet Jesus Christ? No matter who you think Jesus is, every religion on the planet has a recognition of him as being a good person, at least a good teacher. And in my biblical worldview, he is God incarnate. And I've thought, what would it be like to go back in time and to sit in front of him? I get emotional thinking about it right now. In the times of my life where I've been most in need, what would it be like to hide my head in his chest and to seek his guidance? The ultimate beauty and the ultimate good and the peace that can just surpass any comprehension of understanding would be so immense. So I think about that, but then I think, what would it be like to be in the presence of someone who epitomizes evil?
I got a story for you. Okay.
Oh, do tell, do tell.
Okay. Well, you and I talk about the supernatural, right? We talk about, uh, Yeah, you got to understand if you're listening that me and Michelle are buds, okay? We're buds. We've got a friendship. But we talk about the supernatural, almost the disasters and the debacles that keep happening when you go to do a show, right? You can relate to that.
Yes,
Well, I just
often.
want to just share with you, I'm going to give you a supernatural story, okay? So, because I'm always sharing with Michelle my debacles, like today we had a debacle. We were supposed to do the show earlier, but literally a house fell on me. No, it might as well have been that, with everything that seemed to go wrong. So I just want to share, but at the same time, when you do this work, you get into some supernatural experiences. So there's an individual in Europe, because I talk about the EU as the final world empire, because it is. And there's an individual, and I wanted to meet this individual because I knew he was evil. And I said, he might possibly be a good candidate for the Antichrist. Michelle, at the time, I didn't fly in planes because I was anxious and planes made me nervous. And I would never in a million years have been able to meet this politician. Well, guess what? A door opened. Next thing I know, I'm in an airplane. I'm flying to Rome. I got to meet this individual. Now, when I met this individual, I said to myself, he's, by the way, a real, like, if you look at the policies he's coming out with, you're like, my goodness, if he's not the Antichrist, he's like a John the Baptist for the Antichrist in the European Union. So I meet this guy. It was, first of all, literally in his body language, he's like a vulture. He's like like you could just see it. You could see it in his body language. And he goes to, it was the strangest handshake. Michelle? Michelle, where did you go? Are you, Michelle? Oh, we lost you. I got concerned. Okay. It was the strangest handshake. I says, my goodness, this man has no soul. So, okay, Erika, you're sounding crazy right now. So about, I don't know how many months ago, oh no, last year when I was in Rome again, and I was with some members of a political party in the European Union, and this one particular individual who said to me, this individual was an attorney and he headed the legal for this political party within the European Union, but I was there with different diplomats and different people. And we talked about this politician. And now this person's not a believer. And he actually said to me, oh, yeah, we've all met him. He has no soul. That man has no soul. I said, are you serious? I said, I got that same vibe from him. Oh, yeah, no, he has no soul. And so I now believe that within that monster, and it is, if you go to Brussels, that is the throne room of the Antichrist. There's no doubt, because it's got the creepiest energy. But I have no doubt that within that monstrosity across the Atlantic right now, there are individuals already who Satan has a hold of and is greatly influencing for the building of this empire, because it's going to be the political seat of the Antichrist. Does this sound crazy to you? That there
No.
could be individuals right now who, and so I thought to myself, one, I wanted to meet this individual in part because I had this sense about him. There I am meeting him. I mean, you want to talk about a Red Sea parting miracle. But then for a couple of years later, to have somebody state that to me, his policies that he has proposed all are in line with what you would expect for the building of that empire, for what the Antichrist will come in and take charge of. So
And
go
I guess
ahead.
I would say to your viewers, those who are going, yeah, this is interesting, but it almost seems fictitious. With so much coming into place, actually, we know we've heard that phrase before, that truth is greater than fiction, right? It really truly is. And if you see so much happening in the world, you have to take a step back and say, there has to be more to it. So there comes a time when either you pull the wool over your eyes and you just pretend, no, everything's fine, everything's fine. I don't see, there's nothing to see here, right? I'm fine, because it's almost it's almost too scary to look at the truth, Erika, and say, there is an evil underlying in the world. We see the world almost de-evolving, if you will. And there seems to be players in place, like what you mentioned. And the more we become aware of it, the more we have to open our eyes and say, what's really behind all of this? If nothing else, yeah, it's fascinating. But on a deeper level, it really gets you thinking about your life, maybe your eternal destiny. And could this book written thousands of years ago still have relevance today?
Absolutely. I mean, well, just look at the supernatural experiences that we face when we go to do shows. I mean, it's like almost you can't make this stuff up of the things that go wrong or the things that happen. And, but with this individual, I want to make clear, because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I believe that that has done a real injustice in the teaching of prophecy, because you just need to look at geopolitics to see that it's just happening in the order of the day, which is how prophecy always has been fulfilled. But having said that, I think that there are individuals who can have demonic influence. And I'm not saying that they're part of a, because I don't want to give this impression that they're any, how do I say this, Bilderbergers and all that other nonsense. This is this individual I'm speaking about. He's highly, he's funded by Soros. But it's just who he is as a person. This almost power, like he sees the power, but when you meet him in person,
Mm.
nobody likes him, by the way. And it's kind of interesting because the Antichrist, we're told that he is bolder. There's an arrogance about him. And there truly is an arrogance about this particular politician, but you're not just seeing it in him, you're seeing it in some others. So I have come to the conclusion, both having witnessed it and feeling the strongholds over this thing, but seeing that there's also some of those strongholds over individuals who are players within the union. Not that everybody that is involved in it politically is. I've met some really wonderful people that are part of it, but he in particular is a devil, kind of like a John the Baptist of Satan's world, preparing this entity in policy for the Antichrist to come and take hold. And you're right, when he first steps in, he is a deceiver. No one will have a clue that he is going to lead the world into absolute chaos.
No, but we're so open because we've become ignorant in so many ways. We've become distracted by the next shiny thing. We've become easily swayed by our emotions rather than really thinking for ourselves. And that answers a question that's been churning in my mind. Maybe one that I've been meaning to ask you, Erika, is how is it the gentleman that you mentioned, no one likes him. He's not likable. There's just something awful about. If you met someone that you say that person has no soul, that's usually not someone you want to say, hey, you want to go grab coffee with. They're not people you want to be around. So how is it that they come into power? How is it that they have this undeniable force? Explain that. It doesn't make sense to me. Outside of maybe a spiritual something there.
Because he becomes part of the group. He's in with those of this particular ideology and movement. There's the European movement. He's a member of the European movement. So he is unrecognized by those particular peers. But I talked to somebody else who I've also gotten to interview, met him personally, and said to me, who works within the European Union Parliament, and that individual said to me they will not work with him because he is so arrogant. And I think what struck me is that there are individuals who already Satan has a hand on. And it's just fascinating in Europe, or you go to the EU buildings, the Berlaymont in Brussels, the Commission headquarters is shaped like a cross. It's got that architecture, and yet in the center of the cross from the sky is a circle, which is the symbol of Satan. Circles are all over that thing, by the way, you see, because the reason the circle is a symbol of Satan is because it's confined, it's like death, where the God symbol is the tree. It keeps going and keeps branching because it's life and it goes into eternity, the fractal patterns that never end, whereas the circle is confining. So you see this mockery just in the building itself, a blasphemous type of building. Oh, and by the way, the commission president is on the 13th floor. Like, you can't make this stuff up. 13th floor, thing is shaped like a crucifix with a circle in the center, like this is the, son of Satan's palace, which it is and is going to be.
It's interesting because you see these things, and you mentioned I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I feel the same way as a longtime talk show host. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I do believe in reporting the truth. Everything that you said just now are just truth. It's just truth. This is how it's shaped. This is how these people are. These are some of the symbols that are there. What is that about? There's something there, but there's truth there to report. The other thing, as a talk show host, I've literally conducted thousands upon thousands of interviews with very well-known people that anyone who is listening will know who they are instantly, and those who maybe are less known, but thousands of interviews. And through talking with so many different people, the gist of my talk show for my entire career was looking for the God story in the news of the day. And that included people who would call themselves biblical believers, people who did not, and many people on the spectrum of faith. But one thing that was consistent is that in the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years, everybody that I spoke with said there's something happening in the world today. And so I guess I would ask anyone who's listening, watching, what do you think about your worldview, right? I mean, do you believe that there's something happening today? Do you believe that it's culminating towards something? And if you do, what is it? So as you report on some of the things that are happening in the EU, some of the people and the players that are juxtaposing towards our everyday regular life of going, taking the kids to soccer practice and making dinner at night, and yet we see some of these things happening beneath. We see some of the crazy news stories of some of Hollywood and the ugliness that's coming out of
Yes.
Hollywood.
Unbelievable.
And the depths of evil, and even in the Diddy case, accusations of devil worship and maybe not human life sacrificing, but sacrificing children on their makeshift ugly altar in order to have power. And some people will say, well, that they're just playing around. Who plays like that? There's something evil happening in the world around us. It's
No, I
undeniable.
agree. And what's interesting is in response to the evil is the weather patterns. Now, a lot of it is blamed on climate change, but I'm sorry, some of these extremes you just can't have because of CO2 emissions. It just doesn't make sense. It's really catastrophic. And we have a passage in the book of Isaiah that talks about the earth reeling to and fro. And we see almost the earth
Mm.
having a response to the immorality in society. But I do want to just bring out a point as far as the European movement, because I've been on both sides with the liberals and the conservatives. I actually met liberals I like very much that are part of the European movement who are very genuine to really believe that that monster over there is forming for the benefit of society, to prevent war on its continent. And there are genuine, but the individual I mentioned, and there's others like him, they they're in that group, but they're the evil seed, you might say, the evil seeds, the evil influence for its policy, almost as if they're planted there and influenced by Satan himself. But the scripture tells us in the book of Revelation that this empire is the seat of the Antichrist, this
Mm.
beast that rises out of the sea.
Yes, and this is where we see, uh, I guess, two sides of a camp, as we've often experienced here in the United States, one side and the other, and it seems the gulf between them is getting wider and wider. But there is, I guess, in defense of maybe I stand to a little bit more libertarian, a little bit more conservative, definitely. But in defense of a liberal mindset, it doesn't necessarily, you can't say, well, it's because people are evil on either side. A lot of the most debaucherous things that have happened in all of human history have often come because, well, we're just trying to do something good. We're just trying to do something for the people. We're just trying to take care of people. We don't want war. We are trying to prevent disease. We're trying to prevent poverty. But sometimes our kindness turns to cruelty. What is it that puts us over the edge? And in my opinion, it's where we disinclude God. Because if God truly did create all things, if he does have a way for us, if he does have a plan, then his plan is good. And anything outside of it where we say, okay, thanks very much, we've got it from here, just tends not to work out very well for anyone, I would say.
No, I definitely agree. And it's definitely a godless society. Definitely, we're in a godless society that is anti-Christ. It's heading that way. I can't say that, though, about the entire society. Not everybody is like that. But you're you're seeing news stories that are just so shocking. And you're right, that whole story with Diddy, it's it's like you it's unbelievable in the levels of evil and the people involved. Like, you can't believe that this was even taking place. And it's not just in Hollywood, it's happening in every, whether it's in Europe, you will hear stories that take place there or have taken place. It's just unbelievable. Like, I don't know what people are thinking.
We've devolved. I mean, at least emotionally and spiritually.
Um, yeah, it's taken us a long time to do this. Wow. Okay, so I've got you recording now. Recording again. Yeah, isn't it unbelievable? Just
Well, we were talking earlier about it just seems like an attack almost. Like there's just no way that so many weird things could be happening, not just in the world, but just trying to do an interview. We have, in the course of one day, had more unforeseen, uncontrollable technical issues than I can imagine. So there
Oh,
might be some force out there that doesn't want people to be thinking about this. So just pretend, smoke and mirrors. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
well, the terrible thing is it's also happening in my personal life. Like I've entered a twilight zone. Like I'm in the twilight zone now. Like my life isn't even really happening because it's just unbelievable the things that are happening, including all the debacles that happen by just trying to get one show off. I mean, it's one show.
And
But
we're
we
laughing
understand
about it
that.
because you don't want to cry, but uh, that's okay. We're in this together, girl. We're in this together.
Yeah, we both understand that. Like we have that understanding of that this stuff happens. And it's almost there's no words. There's just no words for the amount of things. So anyway, Michelle was gone and now she's back. But you left and departed and came back and came back. So now we're ready to continue with the interview again. But it's wild, isn't it? It's really wild. This whole supernatural that just follows this subject. Talk about supernatural, even with that monstrosity that's forming across the Atlantic. I can't believe that the European movement, which enlists this individual I'm talking about and others, I can't believe that the US media and even in the US, it's like almost unheard of. Like people still think this thing is going to fall apart. They have no idea. And I'm almost excited about this show, Michelle, because also I get to talk about Europe because nobody else is doing it. You don't have any US journalists who are talking about this thing. And this thing is not in US interests. It is already putting forward policy that's frightening, but also in line with what we would expect the Antichrist to take the helm of, and in some ways worse.
So you mentioned no one's talking about it, and it's very true. Again, as a longtime talk show host, it is very hard to find people who can wrap their heads around it. We are so caught up in personal identity, pronouns, and the order of the day that while that may be important to you if you're watching, but really it's like there's bigger fish to fry, and we're squabbling over am I a he, a she, a they, an it, or something completely devoid of all of those things. It's like we're squabbling over stupid things while the world's crumbling around us, and there's really big things happening we really should be paying attention to. But as I think all of us have seen these, where you're watching a video and you see young people who are asked, what country is this? And it highlights, the United States in red. And they're like, I don't know, is that China? We're ignorant. We're growing children who are ignorant, but they understand their pronouns and they know how to put on makeup and they are versed in pop culture. What good does that do? What good has that done our nation? Even if you're not looking for the deeper spiritual things, as I mentioned, my talk show was finding the God story in the news of the day. But even if you're not looking for that deeper story, that God story, if there's a God, what's he doing in all this? And what does that mean to me? You still have to sit back and go, we have become so ignorant of even the most simple things. How can we wrap our heads around a big evil that's trying to do something nefarious?
Don't talk about evil, just the atrocities that are being committed around the globe. And they're mind boggling in how evil, like if you thought you hit the degree of evil, guess what? It's not been hit yet because you're going to hear something that's so shocking, and it's happening globally. It's happening in wars. It's happening by governments. it's happening in the United States by people. Like I would get these news stories, Michelle. I just couldn't believe like who could do this stuff to their own children. Like
Mhm.
stories that are so horrific, like it's out of the bowels of hell itself.
But again, it's because we don't think things through. We work off feelings, or as we talked about just earlier, we allow our kindness. We think of ourselves as good people and we want to do good things, but we allow our kindness to turn to cruelty. We'll talk about one evil, an evil that has been plaguing our nation for some time, and that's human trafficking. And
Yes.
yet we've had an open border saying, oh, we want to be kind to people and people need a better life. And there's no illegal humans except for there are, and except for we open those border and we have undocumented people coming into the United States. That means undocumented little children, undocumented women who can be snatched up, and because they are undocumented, we have no trace. They disappear without a trace, and we
It's
have
funny you
children
should
as young
say
as
that.
3 years
I
old being
just
used.
heard a story. Just heard a story about how 8 and 9 year old girls are taken before they even get to the border by these traffickers who then they are sold into sex slavery from
Mhm.
that age. It's horrific, just horrific what's
But that's
happening.
our
You're right.
kindness. That's our kindness. And come to our country. We want to do good. That's our kindness being turned to cruelty because we're not thinking it through, because we have become ignorant, because we aren't paying attention.
No, one of the things that strikes me with the amount of evil is the trauma that people are enduring. I mean, think of the girl, think of her life. I mean, the October
Mm.
7th Hamas massacre. Look at the hostages and what they're enduring, and what the individuals endured on October the 7th. And I can just keep going and keep going around the world with stories like that. But Jesus said that if his coming, if the days were not cut short, there would be no faith left on the earth, because how can people, go through those kinds of things at a certain point? They're asking, where is God? Where is a God
Mhm.
in all of this? So I can understand why Jesus would say that there would be no faith left on the earth if it doesn't get cut short, because the days are going to be so wicked and so vile. I mean, we see in the Revelation that men are just going to kill one another. That's one of the plagues of the four horsemen, is that men will turn on each other. The beasts of the field, the beast, like a bunny rabbit or a squirrel, is going to become like a major killer. And we see that too. And so it's going to be some really frightening times. You're right, Michelle, to have been scared and wanting to get out and not have to go through that thing by the rapture. And that is the way out, is belief in Jesus Christ. And then you will not go through that tribulation period. That is a period of judgments. And the Antichrist, it's kind of interesting. We talk about the Antichrist, but will not name him. If I look at somebody and I think this person, there she goes again. There she goes again. Technical difficulties. As I'm talking about the Antichrist. Can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up, Michelle. I thought I lost you for good.
Sorry.
So and I've lost my train of thought now. It was a total distraction. So the Antichrist, and I completely got distracted because you just
Yeah, I'm
with
sorry
a
about
really
that, but you were making a good point in talking about the evil that's coming on the earth, and that and
oh,
distractions.
okay. So that's what I was saying. So the Antichrist is a vehicle of God's. He is one of the scriptures says he is the rod of God's wrath. The rod.
Mm.
In other words, he is going to be used by God because the society, according to the book of Daniel, and we also see a glimpse of this in the Revelation, becomes so wicked and so immoral. And Jesus also said as well, when the society is like, the days of Noah, characterized by violence, or Sodom and Gomorrah, characterized by the horrific sexual immorality, what we're seeing in P. Diddy's world, that same type of a thing. So uh, I I feel that as much as we talk about him, if I were to come across his identity, I wouldn't reveal it. That's not.
What? Wait a minute. Really?
No, no, no. He's not to be revealed.
Wow.
If I
Wow. So
ask why,
is it that you don't want to give him airplay, or you don't want to, I mean, what is that? That's fascinating.
because if I were to reveal him and this is going to sound crazy, but he is not to have anything happen to him. He is the rod of God's anger. So if I were to try to bring attention and say, wow, there's a really good individual who looks very good, and people look and they're going to think, well, it's my job to now, although there will be an assassination attempt on him. We
Yeah.
see that in the book of Zechariah and also in the
The head injury.
Revelation.
Hmm.
The head injury, and
Hmm.
also he's going to have this resurrection where he comes back to life, and then everybody is just amazed, like, oh my goodness, look what he was able to do, like he came back to life. But what's interesting in the Revelation is this is the time when the seventh head becomes the eighth head. So what that means is it's at that time that this entity, this Antichrist entity, completely takes over his body. That's the seventh to the eighth head,
And
with
then it gets
the riddles in
really
the
ugly. You
Revelation.
think things are bad now. I love
Things are bad now.
love it.
Wait, we shouldn't be
Look
laughing about
out.
this.
Buckle up, sweetheart. Just saying. But I love that you answered a question that people ask, in that you mentioned that if the days weren't cut short, there'd be no faith, because people would ask that question: where is God? How is this possible? And that amazes me, because we kick God out of schools and then we say, why are there school shootings? We kick God out of society and we say, why is society all messed up? We remove God. We say, no, thank you, God. We've got it from here, as you've heard me say. And then we wonder why things fall apart. Well, there's a good reason there, but it's also really beautiful that you mention that as evil as the Antichrist is, as evil as that is, it is still used by God. That everything, all things can work together for good. As the Bible says, for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose, there is a purpose that God uses. Even the most vile things, God can turn to good.
It's
Because
funny you
even
should
through,
say that. I
yeah,
want to
go ahead.
just highlight on that. The ecosystem, nothing goes to waste. In our
Mm.
lives, there is nothing that goes to waste. Every bad experience that you've had, somehow, you're right, will be used for good. Somehow it'll give you some wisdom later. Somehow you'll meet somebody. Somehow it'll take you to that journey down the road. Nothing in your life goes to waste. It's all used, just like the ecosystem. But I also find that in geopolitics, everything matters.
Mm.
When the apostles stated that it was the last times, what that meant was that all of the events, it's just like the ecosystem, it all plays in, it all unfolds into this finale, which will be the revelation period, the tribulation, but everything. So you're right, in God's ecosystem, whether it's our own lives and bad experiences, nothing goes to waste. But I do want to highlight, there was an individual I know, and he fought the Khmer Rouge. Now, the Khmer Rouge was, Pol Pot was so evil and vile. He would go
Mhm.
into these villages and completely brutally massacre the people and leave one person alive to tell the story. So, the Khmer Rouge, all the killing fields, so Pol Pot was really scary. So he revived, and I forget what period this was, but he revived and his guys started going through. So an individual who was a soldier who did a CIA operation, who I had spoken with, is an atheist today because of the violence that they witnessed in one of the villages, people hanging with their entrails out, a girl that had literally every bone in her body broken by metal rods. And he's an atheist to this, I'm sorry, an agnostic who cannot wrap his head around the idea that there can be a God when you have, and he saw this violence firsthand. And it was interesting because the CIA wanted them to bring back these soldiers alive. And what they did is they took it upon themselves and they killed them all. They said that they took it upon themselves. They didn't complete the mission as it was supposed to be completed because they felt that anybody who was capable of doing this to other human beings did not deserve to live. Now, these were soldiers. So, and this individual was doing a CIA mission. But the point is, that story stuck with me of somebody who witnessed horrific atrocities, who today cannot wrap his head around God because of it. So I can understand somebody having that viewpoint if they've experienced a lot of hard things. But Jesus does address that. In the world, you will have tribulation. Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. We have many verses where God recognizes the pain and also says, but I'm there. But it is hard to kind of wrap your head around at times, though, Michelle, because
It
the
is.
levels of evil that, and even what
Or
people
even in our
are
own
doing.
lives. I mean, couldn't we be really, let's just get really real. Even in our own lives, even you and I have talked about the difficulty that we can sometimes go through that at this point in my life, I can't doubt God. But there's times where we have had, I'll just say, God and I have had words. It can be difficult. But I will tell you something, and there is something to this. Going through that level of difficulty with a love of God that is so powerful and so real that there is not an evil or a pain that can dampen or blow out the candle of light and love. There is something powerful in that, and there is something real. And we started this interview with my story coming to my faith as a little girl, looking for real truth, finding that the joy in Christmas isn't Santa Claus, it's Jesus coming to earth, and how that's grown with me. And I will tell you, when I was 16 years old, I lost my beloved sister. She died.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into the hospital after seeing her body laying there, just
Oh, that sounds
harrigan.
horrific, Michelle.
I went into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I did not recognize the face that I saw before me. I was 16 years old and I looked like I
Mm-hmm.
was, 30 or 40. The grief, I saw grief looking back at me in the mirror, staring at me. And then the words to a song that was popular at that time in the Christian circles came into my mind. I will take your burden if you let me love you, wrap my arms around you, give your heart a home. And suddenly I remembered that there is something deeper than my pain, deeper than what I'm experiencing, deeper than what the world is experiencing. That's a love of a God who did not leave me to my own devices, but intervened in history to make a difference. And all I could see at that point was the cross. And I watched my face turn from grief to elation. How could I have elation during such grief? I missed my sister. I didn't miss her any less, but the joy that filled me was so profoundly real. It was palpable. That's why these things that we're talking about are so important today, not just because they're whoa fascinating or oh my gosh, can you believe it, or like watching a movie, but because there's a truth there that if we discover it, we have found a treasure that cannot be bought, a pearl of great price, you might say.
You're right. And I find as I, do this, of course, do the show, also as I just, delve into the news and the different things that are happening, and especially the study, it's incomprehensible to me, the a level of evil that actually does exist in the society that Satan is orchestrating. It's incomprehensible that the evil can exist, that man's inhumanity to man can exist to that degree.
Mm.
But you're right, the love of God. And some people, well, how come the love of God isn't, my life isn't rosy and, I've maybe been blind from birth, or you know what I'm saying? I mean, people with their issues. But I think the love is expressed in the Redeemer of Jesus Christ, who gives us that eternal life, who died that death. I don't fully understand it. It's very hard to understand the ways of God because he's so esoteric. This is
Mm.
an esoteric God. You're never going to understand him. You can't say this is how he should be. Go just read the Bible. It's esoteric. And it's incomprehensible, but yet it's consistent in its language.
And yet
And
it's also simple. So it's odd that way, right? And
but yet it's holy. You know that this is a holy, and it's a living word, and you see these supernatural things just happen in your life. And so I guess what I'm saying to you is I understand what you're saying. And there actually is a song called The Love of God, and it talks about the incredible love of God. But in other words, knowing that this level of evil exists, but he would create this Redeemer to provide a way so that people could have this reconciliation with him and also be made right or righteous in his sight. Again, incomprehensible. The gospel intellectually doesn't make sense. You just accept it. And I think what allows me to accept it is the fact that should God make sense? Do you know what I'm saying? He's the God of the universe. How could we expect him to
his
make
ways
sense?
his ways are higher than our ways.
Exactly. And
But I
the
do
book is
cling to the
incredible.
things that he says, the things in the book as you mention it, because as you talk about it, and as we follow you as your audience in this conversation about an antichrist, one scripture comes to mind where sin abounds, grace doth more abound. And so, as these things can seem frightening and these things can seem overwhelming and the evil can just seem incomprehensible, that's what it comes to mind. Where sin abounds, grace doth more abound.
That's a great, great verse. Well, Michelle, we've been chatting away. But so at the end of the program, we ask a series of questions about 10 different, actually, excuse me, my bad, 12 questions, the divine dozen. So we like to ask 12 different questions so that the audience can get to know you more personally. And also, these questions are issued by the producers of the show. So the first question is, what book is on your bedside table?
The Bible.
I was going to say, I'm going to guess that to be the Bible. And actually, that book is on my bedside table as well.
Yeah.
That's my book. What was the last TV or streaming show you watched?
I started watching the new series, a new Star Wars series, because I'm a little geeky. It's the one where the kids are lost in. It's basically
Mhm.
Lost in Space, Star Wars style. So there you go. Whatever it's called, it's new, and I'm starting to watch it.
Would you recommend
There we
it?
go. Not yet. So you never know with anything coming out of Disney. So I'm hesitant to recommend because it starts out fun and then you go, what are you doing?
Okay. What three songs would be on your all-time playlist?
Ooh, my all-time playlist. All right. You lately I have really enjoyed Christmas songs because we have indulged in the holidays, but let's get beyond Christmas. All-time favorite, How Great Thou Art, His Eye is on the Sparrow. And why do I go back to these things that I learned as a little kid instead of the things that I grew up with? And we got to I guess let's throw in a Beatles song like Revolution. I need a revolution in my life. So, juxtapose those two things. those
Okay.
those two styles, right?
And where do you get your news from?
I scour a lot. So I have given up on the legacy news media. It is not news, it's just entertainment. But I will look at people like you who go to sources, and I do a lot of scouring, Erika.
Okay, so you let that. Well, thank you. That was a compliment. Okay.
You got it.
Is there an author podcast website or social media channel you recommend?
I would love for people to come to ours, and I will tell you why. I have, I'm sorry, I have a baby crying in the background. Can you
That's
hear that?
fine. That's fine. I
Okay,
have a little
okay.
dog and she hasn't barked yet. So
Go
she hasn't
figure.
barked, but sometimes that happens.
People have been a little bit sick here. I would love people to come to ours, and I will tell you why. I believe that everybody has a voice, and for people who believe that they have been born for such a time as this, I would
Mhm.
highly recommend people learning to speak their voice to their audience because there's somebody that needs you. So I love
Wow.
connecting with people at findyourvoice.fun and hearing your story, hearing your voice, and helping you to impact the world and make a difference.
Wow. Okay. And what is your favorite fast food?
Okay, so I'm this organic girl. Totally. I am a total organic girl. We grow all our own food. We make all of our own products.
Oh,
But that's,
wow.
yeah,
Michelle,
it's
I'm
true.
coming. I'm coming to your
Telling you, I
place.
love it.
Oh,
But,
that sounds
but,
like a little heaven for me. Go ahead.
but come on, there's a little guilty pleasure in there. So this is embarrassing because I'm Hispanic. I'll go to like Taco Bell and just get cheap tacos. And I know every Hispanic person that's watching is going, oh no, that's like an affront. But aside from street tacos, man, yeah, that's a guilty pleasure of mine. All right, now you know.
Okay, good. That was great. Who are you afraid of?
I don't really have a fear of anyone. I just don't fear anyone. Um, I don't fear the future. I don't fear the Antichrist. Um, but I will say that I fear making a decision that displeases my God because I love him so much and I've seen him see me through a lot.
Okay. Who makes you laugh?
You make me laugh a lot.
I
My
do.
yes, and my family.
Okay.
I have a son who he really should have been a comedian. So yeah.
Okay. Who is the celebrity expert politician you would be most nervous about meeting?
I would think our current president, our current to be again President Trump, why would I be nervous about meeting him? I think that there's so much surrounding him. He's almost this loose cannon in a way. I'm thankful for him to a degree, but you just never know what to expect with him.
Okay. That was a good answer. And what is your order at Starbucks?
Just a plain old whole milk latte. And if I could get organic milk, well, you know me, that's what I would ask for.
Uh-oh. I've got two more questions, Michelle. Please come back.
There I am.
Michelle, come back. Okay, two more questions. And you'll probably answer this next one and know the answers because a lot of several guests don't know the answers. How many Kardashians can you name?
Oh gosh, no. Um,
Come on, you're in that
okay.
industry.
I know there's Kim and Chloe and
Oh, you're doing good. Come on, keep it
um,
going.
Chris
Yes.
and
One more,
no,
one
the one
more,
with
and you
two
get the
hundred thousand
prize.
dollars worth of
Come
stuff
on.
done to them. Can we just stop there?
Okay. Um, you meant Kim.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What's your version? Okay, final question. Drum roll. Boom, 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 boom,
Da, da,
boom.
da,
Okay.
da.
What's your version of hell? The worst way to spend a day or an evening?
Worst way to spend the day or an evening. I would say at a, I would, oh, hmm, doing nothing, doing nothing, just doing nothing. I got to be doing something. So, although some of those nothing times are great, some of those quiet times, but if
True.
I have nothing, yeah, yeah. So I guess it's a give and take. And
Well,
I'll tell
Michelle,
you one thing, I don't
go
like
ahead.
political rallies. Don't like political rallies.
Okay, so that would be your worst day or
There you
evening,
go. Yeah.
political rally. Okay. Well, Michelle, I want to thank you for being on the show today. And again, give us a plug for your projects. Where can people find you?
Sure. Sure. If you need to find and speak your voice, you're listening, you're looking for podcasting, broadcasting, publishing, we are findyourvoice.fun.
Well, Michelle, I want to thank you again for coming on, and hopefully you will come back.
I would love to. I love you dearly. I follow you intensely, and I thank you for your time today.
Okay, Michelle, thank you so much. Well, that was a great show. And I knew that Michelle was going to be a different interview from my usual interviews and an interesting interview. What a dynamic personality she's got, and a real faith in God. And also, some great conversation took place on the Antichrist. Well, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for more. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I want you to hit it right now. Also, be sure to look out for the next episode, and if there's any topics or individuals you would like to see me interview, please put it in the comments. If there's anything you'd like to add to today's conversation, definitely want to hear about it, and be sure to share this video. Also, hit that like button. The more you hit the like button, the more this video will get out there. Till next time.